It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. It's 2023, and I thought we'd kick it off with a bang. I want to talk about 7 lessons that will help you have a much more effective and better retrospective. I can tell you now, retrospectives are some of the most difficult meetings. Somebody sent me this article. It was published by Leora Corney, and it was published. Let's see if it has a date. It does have a date. Back in October of last year. And Leora goes on to talk about the value of retrospectives and what the Scrum Guide says. But then she proposes these 7 lessons. And I thought these 7 lessons were quite good. So I thought I'd take an opportunity to share these 7 lessons with you to kick off 2023 with a bang. Here we go. Lesson number 1, do not rush things. I can tell you, many organizations think that there's not a lot of value in this meeting, so they shave off 5 to 10 minutes for the retrospective at the end of every sprint planning meeting. Does anyone have anything to say about the last sprint? And surprisingly, nobody did. Go figure. I can tell you that this is probably the most disheartening way to have a retrospective, right? I don't know that you need to carve out an entire hour, 2 hours, and have a hard time box. But what I do know is that if you can guide the teams to understand the value of the retrospective, and they can leverage that and they can understand what should and shouldn't be happening there, they can talk openly about things that are happening and things that impact the team. And that can be anything from events that happen during a sprint and during a timeline that have impacted the team's ability to deliver, or it could be things that impacted individuals or the team as a whole. And that impact should be discussed so everyone can be on the same page. All right, so that's number 1. Don't rush it. Number 2, make it interesting. The retrospective has the potential to be boring. There, I said it. Especially if you're doing this with international teams and they feel like culturally it's strange to do this and talk about things and feelings. But I think that the facilitator makes a huge difference here. Remember, anybody can facilitate. It doesn't have to be the scrum master. A lot of team members bring in games, interesting games, or adapt different exercises and ask different questions instead of the typical 3. You can, there's a list of 8 questions that I provide in my Scrum Master class. I'll try to publish those here in the comments. But there's also several games, whether it's the 4 quadrants game or the sailboat game, there's hundreds of them. There's lots of different ways to do retrospectives. My advice to you, if you have remote teams, is to make sure you use a tool like Mural or Miro that's going to help you really engage. I like Miro because of the Miroverse. On the Miroverse page, you can see all kinds of incredible ways to do retrospectives. And you'll never run out of ideas to make things interesting if you go there. So that's another good tip. Number 3, make it safe. I remember one time I was in an organization and managers kept poking their head in the retrospectives. And I'm like, oh, nobody's going to do anything or say anything if you're here, right? Would you expect open discussion among team members if the people who are doing their review or they're present in a retrospective? Absolutely not, right? So, a great approach is to go back to your Scrum values and figure out that if the team wins together, the team's going to fail together. If the team succeeds, that we can measure and we can create a radar based on values, the 5 Scrum values. And we can ask ourselves, how do we do with regard to focus? What about openness? What about respect? And we can kind of chart where we are with stickers or with markers or however you want to do it. But it'll give you a chance to focus on the force and it'll give you a chance to really get a good understanding in a safe environment how we did in the 5 core values. I think that's a great idea. Okay, let's go to number 4. Number 4 is make it a must. It should be mandatory. I hear people all the time say, "Well, we're under a lot of pressure this sprint. So there's no time for us to do a retro," or "There was nothing special about this sprint. So there's no need for a retro," or "If there will be if there will be a need, then we'll do one. If not, then we don't need to do." Oh my goodness! The key here is to understand that if you don't value if you don't have the retro, there's no way you're going to learn to value it. And if you don't value the retro, then you're doing it wrong. Please, 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 for the love of Pete, do not skip the retro. Find ways to make sure people understand what it's for. It's one of the most important meetings in all of Scrum. You need to make sure that you're doing it. Okay, there, I got it out of my system. Number 5, Check action items from the previous sprint and list new action items for the upcoming sprint. If no one checks on the action items from a previous retrospective, what's the point? You need to make sure you're documenting these. Now, one of the tips that I have is to put the items in the backlog as a 0 point backlog item. Make sure you look at them every single day. And if they're in your face every single day, somebody's going to do something about it and it'll remind you to bring them up again at your next retrospective meetings. So you can make sure that you're talking about the things that are important. And that brings me to number 6. This is interesting. Her number 6 says, retrospect the retrospective. Okay, that's kind of like Inception. But if you're doing the same exact thing every time, okay, everybody, we're going to answer the 3 questions. What went well? What didn't go well? What can we improve as a team? Oh my goodness. If you do that every single time, it's going to become ritualized and boring. The team will start to think the retro is a waste of time. They won't want to do it. Find ways to have a meta retrospective on the retrospective itself and talk about what we can do to make it great again. Make retrospectives great again. It just sounds like it has a good ring to it. I like it. All right. How about number 7? Make sure everybody is participating. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, we use anonymity to make sure more people participate. All anonymity does is create bullying, right? In my opinion, you don't need anonymity. What you need is a way to get active people or people who are inactive to be more active. I do interactive games. I do the quadrant game. I give people opportunities to vote and to call things out. And what I can tell you is that you'll find in many retrospectives, 1 or 2 people dominate it. And that usually means that other people aren't getting a chance to speak. So, evenly distributed speaking time is a great sign for a high performing team. So, there are timers that exist now that you can download as part of your retrospective, even if you're doing it in Zoom or Miro or Mural, that you can count talking time and make sure everyone gets a balanced amount of talking time. And what that does is it ensures that the team is listening and communicating and doing well. What I can tell you, Leora, is you did a great job with this article. I love it. I'm going to post these 7 lessons, and I'm also going to post a link to the episode or to the blog post that was sent to me that I'm reviewing. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope that some of those lessons will be useful to you. That's going to do it for today. And as always, I encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.